This was 2019. I jumped into it, took off right away. And that was what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago ish. I haven't stopped since. So Socialistics, full service social media agency, grew to a $1 million business within 2 or 3 years, which was a really emotional moment for me. I remember sitting there crying. Somebody that, I grew up poor, and, my mom took care of me and my brother. She passed away 20 years ago. So, it's just all these emotions of like, I can't believe that I've done this. And then the immediate thought in my head was, my God, if I can do this, then anybody can.
Hey, folks, thank you for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. I have a special guest today, Jason Yormark. He is the owner, founder, and now author of Anti-Agency, and it's a realistic path for $1 million business. Jason, how are you doing today, and where are you calling from?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. I live up on the Olympic Peninsula. So I live up in the top corner of the United States, which is beautiful country and a little bit separated from mass sized cities. So I love it because there's less people and more nature and more untouched land. So yeah, I grew up in Chicago, moved to Seattle for Microsoft, and settled here.
Very nice. Are you pretty rural? Is that where you're at?
It kind of is, yeah. I mean, you can drive here. It's a pretty long drive, but there's ferries all over the place. In the Sound, there's all kinds of islands and water. Uh, you know, you got the ocean, obviously, but you got the Sound, so you got all these land masses that kind of separate it. So there's lots of ferries that kind of get you to all these places, and one of them basically kind of gets you to the path to where we're at. But yeah, when you separate living spaces with bridges, it creates it's certainly a different type of living experience. But being older, typically people want to be around less people and less madness and traffic and all that, and certainly that's the case for me. So there's some trade-offs, but certainly
Nice.
worth it.
Kind of sounds majestic.
It is. It's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's
Oh my
really
gosh, I
amazing.
got to check it out. I
Yeah.
have to check it out.
Yeah.
So, Jason, again, thank you for being on this call. When I heard you were going to be on the call, I got excited because I know you have a journey for us. And what I'd like to do for our listeners today is maybe we can start like where you started, follow us kind of through some of the ups and downs, let us know some of the pitfalls that you have hit and but you've conquered, right?
Sure.
There's been some pitfalls, but there's been some successes that I'm excited to hear about. And bring us up to today and where everything kind of set. Now I know
Sure.
you're an author also, so I'd like to eventually hear about the book as well.
Sure.
Whether you want to weave that into your journey or if you want to bring that into today's. Fair
Sure.
enough.
Sounds great.
Perfect. The court is all yours.
Okay. Well, let's go back. I was always terrible at school. I just never applied myself. It felt like a waste of time to me. And not that it was, but I just felt like there were things outside of the classroom that just were more interesting to me. And typically that involved anything creative or building things. So when I got into college, I certainly had some missteps, almost got kicked out because of grades, and kind of got my shit in order, and, at least to a level that was, consistent enough to be able to get out of there with a degree. But really where things started to take off was started a painting business in the summers of my college experience. And that's really where I started to cut my teeth on that entrepreneurship bug. Was really successful with it, made more money than somebody my age probably ever should make. And it really kind of planted something inside my brain in terms of, what resonates with me. That being said, I was still kind of a corporate drone. I'm like, oh, no, finish school, get a job, get your paycheck, get married, have kids, do all of the things, do. And then, went through that. And, I was a marketer my entire life, and I have more firings and layoffs than I would like to admit. And for the longest time, it was a sense of embarrassment to me. But I think once I learned later in life, you start looking at people's LinkedIn profiles and that are marketers, and you just see the volume of opportunity or jobs that they've had over the time. It's very normal. If you're a marketer, I mean, it's your flavor of the month. So if you're a marketer, it's very common to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different stops along the way. So I started to realize, oh, I'm not that weird actually. This is pretty common. But I always felt like a square peg in a round hole. I always felt like I want to get shit done. I want to move fast. So, I moved from Chicago to Seattle for Microsoft. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I got my master's degree. I was coaching volleyball. I'm like, I'm going to be a teacher. Got into the classroom. Like, teaching is not like coaching. It is not the same thing. Hard
Right.
lesson, real hard lesson. So I'm like, yeah, this probably isn't going to work out for me. Luckily, this was back in 2005. Microsoft is hiring like gangbusters to compete with the Google ads, which had been kind of rolling out and killing it. It was one of the first 50 hires at what now is called Microsoft Advertising. It wasn't called that back then. Microsoft Ad Center. And quickly, just everything took off from there. I mean, I'm thrust into one of the biggest companies in the world, dream job, moving fast, hiring fast. That's all I did for the year. Hire people, build a team. I had a team of 35. I was managing 35 people at one time, flown out to England, Ireland, Spain to help facilitate the launching of similar teams out there. I mean, it was just a whirlwind of like experience. And quickly, I kind of pivoted into social media. This was around 2005, six, seven, right when Facebook was kind of moving away from just college campuses. So I was right in it, right when it started to kind of take off. MySpace was kind of starting to slow down. Facebook was picking up, Twitter was picking up, and I was just in the middle of it all. And I just ingrained myself in learning how to leverage social media for business. At the time, it was for Microsoft advertising. I eventually got laid off from Microsoft, got hired back a year later after blogging and reinvesting in myself and growing my following on Twitter to like 40, 50K, just really investing in myself to kind of get myself at the time back to Microsoft. I had to get back to Microsoft. This is why I moved here. That's the dream coming. They hired me back. Hated it. Wasn't the same thing. In
Oh
Microsoft,
no.
when you're talking about 40, 50,000 people, tons of different products, teams, you can have one experience here and one experience here, and it's completely different. So I realized relatively quickly that, getting back to Microsoft really wasn't the goal. It was to find the right next opportunity. So I parlayed that into a relatively high level executive position at an agency running, basically building their social media business for their agency. Built that up, spent the next 10 years agency life, managing social media teams, making a name for myself, but still always felt like unsatisfied, like something just felt, I kind of knew in the back of my mind I wanted to do my own thing, but it felt like a dream. Like, oh, I'm going to
Right.
start my own business. Like to me, it was the equivalent of, oh, you're going to be a baseball player or you're going to be a movie actor. I'm like, no, that's not real life. Keep, doing what you're doing and pay your bills. And during this whole time, I grew up poor. It's just my mom, my brother, paycheck to paycheck for the longest time, probably up until about 10 years ago, really. But, and just the layoffs, the firings. I mean, it was just starting to pile on and pile on and pile on. And then eventually I got laid off again and I couldn't find something. I'm like, I'm just going to spin something up. This was 2013, 14. I started an agency. It was called Studio 9. Had no idea what I was doing other than the work itself. It grew pretty quickly. I had 20, 30 small business clients. We're talking about, 500 to 1500 a month retainers with an occasional 2 or 3K one in there. So it was going well, and, but it wasn't sustainable. I wasn't charging enough. I had too many clients and it collapsed. I had to eventually end up getting a job again. And I was even more miserable after that point. I didn't realize at the time that even though technically, I didn't fail, but that business ended. But what I experienced from that is another thing that kind of prepared me for what inevitably would happen. Eventually, I decided, well, I really want to do my own thing. And the only realistic path there is if I create a runway for myself. Like I can't just jump away and not have a paycheck. Still had kids that were in school. I'd gone through a divorce. So I had an expensive life. I have things to pay for. So, but I know this is what I want to do. And I think the only way to get there is I got to create some momentum. I've got to try to build something on the side so that I can get it to a place so that if and when I get laid off again or fired out, like I'll have a landing spot that feels a little less risky. It's exactly what happened. Last job I had, found out the owner of the business was sleeping with somebody on my team. I'm like, I'm done. Like this is it. Like I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Luckily, I had Socialistics kind of in motion and it had some momentum. I said, you know what? I'm done. Like I'm just gonna go for it. And this was the first time in my life that I jumped in 100% and didn't I wasn't scared. And that's really, I think, what prevented me from getting to that place sooner is the fear of failure, the fear, the imposter syndrome. Like, really? Like that me? I'm gonna like this doesn't seem real. Once I was able to conquer that fear, everything took off from there. It sounds really touchy feely, but it's true. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but ultimately it took off. This was 2019, so it had been going for a year, kind of on the side. I jumped into it, took off right away, and that was what's 6 years ago, 7 years ago ish, and haven't stopped since. So, Socialistics, full service social media agency, grew to $1 million business within 2 or 3 years, which was a really emotional moment for me. I remember sitting there crying, somebody that, I grew up poor and, my mom took care of me and my brother. She passed away 20 years ago. So, it's just all these emotions of like, I can't believe that I've done this. And then the immediate thought in my head was, my God, if I can do this, then anybody can. Like, I have to tell my story. Like, this is crazy. Like, I just felt this overwhelming sense of I need to, I need to put something out there that can help other people find their freedom through entrepreneurship. And then that's where this came in. So spent a ton of time and money on this. I don't make money on this at all. Haven't. If anything, I'm still negative on that one. But ultimately that's okay because I didn't care about making money on the book. I cared about telling my story and leaving something behind and giving other people confidence and motivation to know that, hey, you can do this too. And here's some steps and mistakes that I've made that maybe can help you get there a little bit easier. And it has been. It's been great. It's opened up doors. I've talked to college campuses, conferences. People have responded really well to it because it's not fluff. It's like this is what I did. Like I remember thinking about you're really putting yourself out there. I'm like, well, you can not like this, but this is true. Like this happened. Like so, whether you agree or disagree, or whether you don't like it, but I've had nothing but positive responses to it, and it's been great. And the business is that's where we're at. I have a small team. We're a small agency, but we've been a 7-figure business, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm not in the business really day to day anymore. I have an amazing team. I've got a gal that runs it. I advise, I dip in when they want me or need me. And now I start to think about, okay, what's the next thing? And, but that's somewhat my consolidated version of where I came from and where I'm at. So I'll pause there and let you chime in or ask any follow up questions.
So there's a lot of things that I personally can resonate with. Me reinventing myself at age 61,
Oh, wow.
the fear resonates with me. So I'm wondering, without giving up too much of information that's in the book, talk to me about the fear. Obviously, you've always felt like you were a round peg and square hole or whatever. I think I reversed that. Oh, but the fear. How did you get by it? Like what what went through your mind or whatever to where you said, okay, I'm going to persevere from that. I'm going to get rid of that. Or maybe you never got rid of it. It's still there. How did you cope with it?
I wish I could say there was just this magic pill that I took that kind of did it, but the honest answer is time and experience. I think that just having gone through and starting a business and just the repeated failed experiences at companies, and look, I'm not saying I've made mistakes, and when I think about my career path, I was probably fired a couple times for performance issues, but mostly it's just because of layoffs or things that are out of your control. Hell, I lost an agency job because the owner of the business had a friend that had a similar position at a different agency and she wanted my job and she said, "Hey, I'll bring my book of business over." And he's like, "Sorry, I got to let you go. Money's money." So it's
Right.
like you're it's not 100%, but you're always going to be a number to a company, especially bigger companies, especially in this day and age. I mean, with all the layoffs and AI and so I think I just had this growing sense of my entire life growing up poor, living paycheck to paycheck. Stability typically is the number one thing that you're looking for. You don't have to worry about am I going to be able to pay all my bills this month and am I saving up enough? So you just really get locked into this I need a paycheck every month, that consistency, that stability, the medical benefits, when you start your own thing, there's so much uncertainty about a lot of those things and can feel overwhelming and oftentimes handcuff you and stop you from making progress. So I think for me, it was just the repeated failures of this company didn't work, this company worked. And every time I thought, oh, this is going to be great and this is awesome and this is going to be my my cat's about to walk through the cat. Oh, you can't see her. Okay. So it was that just the experiences that I had just led me to a place where I was just, I think, just exhausted at the thought of working for somebody else anymore. So I'm like, I just came to the conclusion like the stability that I was always looking for was right in front of me the whole time, which was doing my own thing. And when I let go of the fear and I just went for it 100% and trusted myself and what I knew and what I've built, it took off. And once I got a taste of that success, success breeds success. Like I
You
was
want
just, it just kind of
more.
took off from there. So uh, really just experience and time.
So with that experience in time, do you think the failures and we're not really using the word failures, but the inconsistency with the companies that you were working
Hmm.
with or for, and where they laid you off or whatever, and do you think you just got callous to that
Yeah,
kind of
I think so.
situation and just, okay, that's part of it, and then it kind of set your mind up to where you wanted to do your own thing?
Yeah, there's a little bit of luck in terms of timing. I mean, I built this thing about 5-ish years before the whole AI revolution started to take shape. But I just and I now more than ever, nothing is more important than to diversify your income streams. Look, there's always exceptions to the rule. There are I think it's becoming less and less common in terms of people like being at the same company for 30, 40 plus years. And ironically, I say that because I am married to one that's been at the same company. She's been there for 35 plus years. So we are
Oh,
complete
wow.
opposites, but that's so rare. And I don't think that's going to be a thing anymore. And so many jobs are being replaced by AI, especially marketers and creatives. And if you don't carve out your own path in some way, even if it's just a supplement, you are going to be at a severe disadvantage because it's just a matter of time before that hammer comes down. Like for me, it's like, a part of the driving force for me is, especially at where I'm at, nobody's hiring 52-year-old senior marketers who have just been running their own business. If this thing fails, I'm going to have to create something else because nobody's going to hire me. I mean, that's my mindset. So certainly that's part of my motivation. But yeah, I mean, that's really what fueled me before and continues to fuel me now is like you've got to create your own. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. AI is the
Mm.
greatest thing in the world, and it's the most dangerous thing in the world. But it's just like anything else. It's like getting in a car. A car could be the safest thing in the world, could be the most dangerous thing in the world. It's the person behind the wheel that's really going to
Exactly.
determine, you know, whether you use it in a positive way or whether you're careless with it and it doesn't work out. So
So as you say that, words are coming in to me saying, "Okay, you're 52 and established. I'm 61 and not established." So that's really going, "Okay, I have to figure this out," right?
yeah.
But so before I get into what's going on today, I have one question. From what's the biggest boom to your business that hurt your business first that you had to overcome? And then what was
Mm,
the best catalyst that propelled you into more success? So I kind of want the
mm.
opposite, right? What was the worst thing that happened? How you got through it? And then what was the best thing that happened that just you finally realized I'm in the right space?
Great question. The worst thing.
Right now, I think about it was Microsoft hiring you back.
Yeah, that was no, it's hard to look at, it's funny, you had kinda touched on it. I use the word failures, but I don't use it in a negative context. I think,
Right.
it's our failures that shape us, that help us lead us to success. So, I think what it basically comes down to is don't make the same mistake twice. Learn from your mistakes and build off of that. So, I embrace all of the things that have happened in my life that have put me my back against the wall. If I'm being completely honest, I think the most negative or damaging has been the past year. My business model, our business model, social media management services, as they have existed, are becoming more and more obsolete because AI. I mean, there's lots of opinions about AI, and I love it and I hate it. So you can take this with a grain of salt, but I can see it from both ends of the spectrum. I love what I can do with it and how it empowers me and the cool things that I can build and do, but I also recognize that it's going to completely change the dynamic of a lot of jobs and careers and businesses. I see it every day. More and more companies are leaning into AI and laying people off and not paying hefty retainers to marketing agencies to do things. And sometimes rightfully so. There's a lot of shitty agencies. I think that we're one of the good ones. That's certainly shown in our track record. But right, it's our revenue has gone down, the number of quality leads that we drive have gone down. The competition is insane because you've
Right.
got hundreds of thousands of marketing professionals, many of them extremely talented, that are just being let go because they're expendable. So what are these people doing? Well, they're trying to get new jobs, but you know, here's the number of jobs, here's the number of applicants. So what's their next call? Oh, I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to whip up an agency. So now we've got hundreds, if not thousands, of more competitors in the space, creating more noise, are coming in and charging dramatically less as more and more decision makers are realizing and coming to the conclusion that it's getting to a point where I can't tell the difference between this AI piece of content and this human powered piece of content.
Right.
That's happening. It's continues to we're probably 6 to 12 months away from 90% of people not being able to tell the difference if used effectively. So that makes our business model obsolete. So I got caught with my pants down a little bit on that one, and it's affected the business pretty dramatically. Now we pivoted and we're trying some new things, and things are headed back in the right direction. And you know, I'm confident that we'll rebound, especially with our track record. But uh, that's been a heavy hit to the business. I've really questioned, do I really, do I need to go open a sandwich shop? Do I need to really should I do something that has nothing to do with AI? And the other thing you have to realize is all the advice I've always been given is get yourself out of the business. It makes the business worth more. And I was able to do that really early on, faster than I expected. The downside to that, and this is another mistake that I've made, is I checked out of, you know, doing the work. I don't do social media work. I haven't been in it for years. So guess what? Like, if I had to step back in, I'm not as talented at it or as capable as the people that I've been hiring. And so that puts me in a precarious position in terms of my value and in terms of what's available to me over the next 10, 15 years of working that I probably still need to do. So that's probably the biggest negative. As far as the biggest positive, I mean, it's hard to not say. So I'm going to give props to my director of operations slash chief of staff slash badass bitch, Joanna, who I hired for a couple hours a week to do some work here and there. We met in Vancouver briefly, and now we're attached at the hip. Like, she's family, she runs the agency. I got really good at hiring and interviewing. Certainly that has contributed to my ability to have awesome people and hold on to awesome people. I run a very generous operation, sometimes to a fault, because I give a lot, but I'm like, I don't need to be a trillionaire. Like, as long as I have enough. So I take care of my people, but I can't, there is no socialistics without her. So that was just such a key hire that has really allowed me to do so much over the past couple of years, and we'll always be in each other's lives professionally, personally, and I'm sure we'll build other things. So she's definitely been the highlight. You know, one of my number one things: hire slow, fire fast.
There you go.
And
Right.
but she's just been, incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned AI a few times. And I know in this space, it's such a crazy thing. I have opinions about AI, and I think it needs to be monitored by a human
Hmm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I'm seeing is the expectation that consumers have of AI is skewed.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's hurting businesses like yourself because they have certain expectations and it can't work.
Hmm.
How are you using AI to benefit your agency?
Hmm.
And then how is AI hurting you in aspects of the consumer's expectation?
Sure. The loudest people, the people that have the loudest opinions about things are usually the ones that are the most misinformed. And it's certainly true when it comes to AI. People that are very dramatically against it or for it, well, I should say more against it, just haven't really, dipped their they haven't really ingrained themselves in it enough to understand. Because look, AI is just like cell phones, the internet, technology always there's always a new thing. There's always something that's going to, threaten, the way things used to be. And you're exactly right. AI is only as good as it's the prompting and the usage of it, the responsible use of it. There's probably more people that are just using it as without a lot of effective prompting and really being methodical and smart about how they use it. Those are the people that are doing really well right now and will continue to do really well. We use it in a variety of different ways. We use it for tons of internal things. I mean, the days of like researching and finding things like that's over. Like we have agents in place, we've got integrations into our technology platforms like Slack that give us access to just extreme volumes of information and data about all of our clients and everything that we've done for them like that. Like we can literally ask it, what happened on this day 4 years ago? And that, I mean, it's just the access to information, it's shrinking. Like we're able to do so much more in the same amount of time that it's tremendous. And I would say it's certainly getting to the point where it's playing more of a considerable role in the development of creatives, especially for things that are maybe not as human focused. I think AI struggles still a little bit with getting people exactly right, but you know, everything else is pretty much there. And it really just depends on the business, right? One of the things that we've done that's changed our approach is we have an AI offering and we have a non-AI offering. What I mean by that is if you're a business that can only afford, 2000, $2,500 a month, $1,500 a month, your shit's going to be AI, and there's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with that. You know, 2 years ago, it might be a little sketchy, but now totally viable. You shouldn't have a problem with that. Saving money, you get access to things that you didn't have before. So it's a good thing. But then there's companies that, like the Microsofts of the world or bigger companies that still want that human touch. They don't care. They'll spend 5, 10, 15K a month to have you do the thing, and they want to make sure that everything that's being built out is predominantly done with a human touch. Regardless, though, there always has to be a human touch. Even on that $1,500 a month AI powered one, you still need somebody to tell it and to prompt it and to strategize things so that the output ends up being what you need it to be. So it still takes talent. So there's still a place for what we do. It's just very different in how we do it and how we charge for it. Like we can't keep charging $5,000 a month to do a thing that now the entry point for that is $1,500 because they're using AI heavily for the output, whereas we weren't. We used it to like strategize and organize, but can't compete. We gotta lean into AI a little bit more. So you really need to make sure that as a professional, whether you're running the business or the people that you're hiring, are really savvy and understand how to use these tools in ways that are very effective. And then we're doing the thing. We're using Claude, we use GPT, we use specialized AI technology platforms like ones that are specific for creating pitch decks or, you know, the key there is always pick, in my opinion, a piece of technology that does one thing really well instead of one that tries to do everything. That's where you
So
get into the shortcuts that don't really create good output.
right. So it's interesting. This is the first time that I've heard this concept. And maybe it's just because I've never run across it, but it's interesting that you could put someone on I don't know if the correct term is a retainer,
Mhm.
1,500 to 2,500, and most of that work is going to be used in AI. Is that really effective?
Yeah,
Even though you
yeah.
have a person kind of overseeing it versus doing that 10 to $15,000 retainer where you got a human really engaged.
Yeah, and then look, there are very like when you're talking the difference between a $1,500 a month and a $15,000. I mean,
It's
the
big.
the volume of output is significantly more. Like we have a big client like that, and just the volume of content that we're creating and the complexity of their needs exceeds being able to automate a lot of things. So they're both still leveraging AI, but with that $1,500 a month one, look, I got to be 40, 50% profitable. I mean, that means I only got about $750 to work with in terms of paying my people and paying for the technology to service that client. So
Got it. Got it.
really the real difference, I think, to what we were 2 or 3 years ago when we were charging, say, 5K a month to output, let's say 3 to 5 pieces of content on two different platforms. Like that was all, you know, somebody had their mouse and they were designing and they were building and it took 20 hours ish to like create all that stuff. Now we have these AI tools that basically the shift is now that person, instead of doing all the mouse clicks and kind of moving this over here and picking this color, they're like prompting, okay, this is the client. Here's all of their stuff. Learn who they are. Here's their competition. Here's what we're doing. Like you just give it everything. And then this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is the output that we need to do. So it's just, you still have to have a strategic mindset and have experience about knowing what to ask for and how to ask for it so that ultimately what you get is only going to take you a couple hours to tweak and
Right.
play around with, as opposed to the 20 hours that you had to do to kind of build it from scratch. So the best way to kind of visualize it is it's basically taken, what was, I'm not on my screen. I don't know how wide I can go on my screen. What once took, this much is now shrunk down to this. So yes, the quality and the effectiveness still exists. How we get there has just become dramatically more efficient. And that's why we're still like in the beginning phases of this. Like it's going to continue to get less and less expensive. The tools are going to get more advanced. And, the majority, like when you think about the business landscape, I can't remember the numbers exactly. So don't quote me on this exactly, but somewhere in the ballpark, like 70% of corporate America is small business. Like that's a much bigger chunk overall. Like that
Right.
30%, they're still going to work with agencies. They're still going to play massive retainers. They're still going to have high expectations of that more extensive human touch. Like that's always going to exist. But those opportunities aren't point and click. Those are people that are referred, they're partners, they know people. So all these like smaller agencies and consultants that are coming up will have no choice but to be an AI agency. Like I'm thinking about rebranding Socialistics as an AI social media agency or something like that, just because we're just not going to be able to compete. The days of these, mid-sized retainers for mid-sized businesses, that's over. Like it's going to be mostly, 15, that to me seems like the magic number, like 1,500, $2,000. Uh, it's going to be leveraging AI and it's probably going to take roughly, let's say, between 8 and 10 hours a month to manage that account, which is mostly going to consist of strategic direction, just project management, relationship management, reporting, just kind of traffic copying things. But you got to kind of keep it in that realm, because if you want to be 50% profitable on a $1,500 retainer, you can't spend more than $750 to service it. So that's what's happening right now. And that's that's the crisis that we're kind of facing, is like, we better move quickly to adhere to that, because it's okay though. I've made peace with it, because look, we've had $15,000 a month clients that we're only making $500 on. If I have
Wow.
a $1,500 client and I'm making $750 on that, what's smarter, right? What's the better situation? I'd rather have 10 of those smaller ones than that one big one, because they're all more profitable, uh, and they're all more manageable. And if I lose one of them, I'm not going to be up all night. Whereas if that
Right.
one 15K a month client, so it makes sense. You just have to be in a position to kind of put the right pieces in place to kind of be able to compete with that.
Yeah. Jason, I think that puts it in perspective. It makes it more sense, maybe to me and to the listeners, is it's still time management. It's still
Yeah.
how much time you're going to spend with that particular company.
Yeah, you're
So,
not pressing a button and just sitting back and, eating ice cream. It's like some people think that, like it's that
hey,
simple. Like,
wait a
oh,
minute.
make 20 social media posts and then you're just going to go watch TV. Like, no, you're still working. It's just how you spend your time is different.
Yeah,
You're
I
able to
want to figure
output
out how to
more.
eat ice cream and do the same
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So awesome. So expectations is definitely changing the market. What is next for Jason? Like, I know you're talking about possibly rebranding your business
Mhm.
as an AI, but you're an author of a book now. Do you have plans? You're 52.
Mhm.
Are you going to look to slow down, spend more time with the family, or you got some more plans or some more things that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, I've definitely benefited from some success over the past couple years that has put me in a good position. But, with the way our country treats, retirees and Social Security and the uncertainty of that and our health system, like there's a lot of things that I still have probably another 10 years of grinding that I have to do. Maybe not as much as I have over the past 10, but there's still work to be done. So I struggle a little bit because I've gotten a taste of success. I've gotten a taste of this freedom, and now things have gotten a little bit tougher again. I think for a while there we're doing pretty well. We were in a pretty good sweet spot and got comfortable with it a little bit. And now I'm in a precarious position where I'm like, all right, well, am I going to dive back into this? Am I passionate about this? I mean, if I'm being completely honest, am I passionate about social media personally? No.
Right.
I wish I could just unplug, more, but that doesn't mean that, I have a negative opinion of it in terms of its viability for a business to use it to drive, you know, uh, opportunity for themselves. I mean, that doesn't negate that. But it's a grind, finding clients, keeping them happy, winning them over, more competition. I mean, it's exhausting. And there are times where I think maybe I'm ready for something a little bit different, but I'm like, is now the time to pivot, or should I just lean into the thing that I have to offer and just kind of see that through. So I'm going through those thought process. But ultimately, if you're asking me what I'm most passionate about, if I could snap my fingers and do whatever I want, I love consulting and helping and advising marketing professionals, college students, and aspiring older entrepreneurs. I actually was sitting out the other day on the porch, and for whatever reason, I'm not claiming I made this up because I looked it up and it's out there, it's being used. But I'm like seniorpreneur. Like, I'm a seniorpreneur. Like, yeah, maybe that'd be kind of a cool podcast or a cool content lane to kind of like take what I'm doing and zero in on a very specific audience. I started my business later in life and it's different. What you do in your 50s or even your 60s and what you're able to do and how you're able to do it and your mindset, it's different than if you're graduating college or you're young and you're looking to start a thing. It's a very different vibe. And I'm like, you know what? I should probably narrow in on that and see if there's a lane somewhere in there where I can monetize everything that I've learned with an audience that excites me and that I'm more passionate about. I think the problem for me is I'm too generous. Like I do these talks, I do them for free. I don't care. Will I get business? Probably not. I don't care. But I enjoy it. I love helping people. I see their faces light up. And you could tell in how I talk to people and what I put out there because it's authentic. Because I'm not trying to get leads. I'm not trying to get sales. And you can tell, this guy's not selling us something. He's actually, authentic. And so I love that. But the trick is, okay, that's great and all, but how do you monetize that in a way and still maintain that authenticity? So that's kind of where my headspace is at and trying to figure out if that's the road I want to go down. But if there's one thing that I've learned about myself as well is that in the past, like I'm the king of great ideas and like I get excited about something and then I'll start working on it. And then a week later, I'm like, maybe not. And then it feels as well. I hate that. I hated that about myself. So I purposely reverse engineered that. So if I ever had a good idea, now I'm the other end of it. Like I hold on to it and I sit on it and I don't move and I don't take the shot because I'm like, I need to make sure this is exactly what I want to do. So I'm kind of in a weird place where I think I've overcorrected a little bit with that because there is some wisdom around taking shots. Like you have to take a couple shots to inevitably find the thing that sticks. And that's, I think, what I'm struggling with right now.
So I'm so glad you said that, Jason, because if you didn't, I was going to.
Yeah.
Because the last time we talked, that's what resonated with me, that this is a guy that wants to help people.
Hmm.
Yeah, he wants to make a living, but it it was clear, it was coming through that you want to help people. Even in the book. The book is basically a guide, right?
Hmm.
To help people. And so that's what attracted me to learn more about you and have you on this podcast. And I really appreciate that. And I think you following, maybe if it's your heart that might be headed that way,
Hmm.
I think that's going to be some great things for you. I really, really do. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of develops.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell me about your, I guess it's kind of like how I want to see what we say what's next for Jason, but what does that ideal client look like to you? Because I know you've got some smaller businesses and some
Mhm.
bigger businesses, and there's some trade-offs of what works best.
Yeah.
But what if you had to put it in a nutshell? What's your best ideal client?
Answer that question hundreds of times. It's very simple. You're doing awesome shit that people want or need, and you're differentiating in some way. Bad products or services cannot be fixed by the greatest marketing in the world. So you better be disrupting, and you better be doing something that's original and different and unique. And that could be 100 different things. That's number one. Two, no assholes. If you treat my team like crap, it's over. I have no tolerance for that. So, and then the third is basically you're not you have a marketing budget. Like, you have a P&L and L and you have a marketing budget and you have a set amount of money that you're comfortable spending every month no matter what. Those are the most important things. Period. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what industry. If you check those 3 boxes, we're gonna do really well. And we've had clients that have been with us for 4 or 5 years, which is typically unheard of for a marketing agency. But, that being said, we've also had plenty that have only lasted a couple months, and usually that
Right.
falls on one of 2 things happens. I missed something, or my sales guy missed something, or shit happens, you know?
Yeah.
It's that out of
It,
that's out of your control.
is there a percentage of attrition typically that you
Yeah.
can expect, or it just
Yeah, it just
it's
depends.
wide
I
open?
think for us, a successful client engagement for us, I think, is if they stick with us for at least 12 to 18 months, I would say. That's kind of the sweet spot if they stay there. I would say if you had asked me this question a year ago, I would say about 75% of them fall in that bucket.
Okay.
But as things have gotten tough, we've had to kind of chase some things that maybe we otherwise wouldn't. And we know going into them that it's a little bit risky. Usually solopreneurs or startups or people that aren't sure, or maybe their website isn't the great. Like, there's some red flags, but it's possible that we could work with them and kind of get them to the promised land. But we know going into it, like, well, I think if things were going really well, this is probably one we would pass on. So lately, I would say it's closer to 60%. It's gone down a little bit, but that's more reflective of opening the doors to things that we might otherwise not do. But, in a perfect world, I'd like to be about, 3 out of every 4 clients we land are sticking with us that long, if not longer.
Do you ever have to fire a client?
100%. Actually,
Really?
one of the, question I've done it multiple times. You had asked me a question earlier, what was one of the most groundbreaking things, or what's that really changed the business? I wanted to use this as my answer, but I went with Joanna instead because she's awesome. Score some points with her. Learning how to say no. It
Mm,
seems like such a crazy thing to, like, what do you mean say no? But most people they'll say yes to everything. Money, 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 just money in the door, money in the door. Getting comfortable with saying no is one of the most powerful things I ever did. I'll give you a perfect example. I fired multiple clients, usually because they treat my team like crap, and gone. Like, how hard I work to get these awesome people? Like, they're worth more to me than you are, especially if you're going to treat them like that. I had one client, I won't use their name, but they were a huge technology product company, very large, one of our biggest we've ever had. Started working with them for a couple months, and this particular individual just treated my team like garbage, and I just wasn't having it. And so I decided, well, I'll get on a call with her, see if I can kind of work through this. Got on the call, and she couldn't even give me the level of respect that, baseline that I felt like should exist in a professional relationship like this. And then in real time, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I can't get her to, I said, just said her, I've been using individual. If I can't get her to treat me with respect and treat me well, like, there's no way she's going to do that with my team. Fired her on the spot. Fired her on the
wow.
spot. Now, I look back at that and I'm torn. I'm a little 50-50 on it. I'm definitely somebody that's feels very strongly about that, and I just wonder sometimes looking back, could I have navigated that a bit differently and held on to that client a little bit longer? So it's I'm not sure, but I had no problem firing them, and they were a big retainer, and I've always wondered about that one. But there's at least been 4 or 5 examples I can think of letting somebody go because they treat my team poorly. Scope creep. They want all this stuff and don't want to pay more. Or, they lied to us about, like, the things they had that, we needed to be successful. There's all kinds of reasons. But,
Right.
I typically don't want to be in a position where we just keep a client for the money. That's not, that doesn't ever end well.
Yeah.
And I get it. Sometimes you don't have a choice. So I don't want to be naive to the audience. I mean, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But I think the goal of or one of the biggest markers of being successful in business is when you reach a point where you can say no confidently and not even think twice about it after the fact. Like that's when you know you've made it. So
Got it.
yeah.
Nice. Okay, here's the question I always like to ask. So we've had a our audience is listening to us for about 47 minutes. And sometimes they get tuned out, sometimes they get interrupted, sometimes things happen and they don't hear the whole meeting or
Hmm.
the concept.
Yep.
So if that happened and there's one point or one message that you want to get across that at least they leave with this, what would that message be?
That's great. Narrow it down to one. I'm thinking in the context. I would imagine if somebody's listening to this, that there's a high probability that they're either not currently a new entrepreneur or thinking about doing it. I would say I'm gonna bucket in one thing. The best advice I can give to somebody like that is if you're in trust your gut and your instincts. If you feel like you're misplaced working for somebody else, you are. And you're never going to reach a level of satisfaction and freedom if you don't find a way to bridge that to doing the other thing. And that can be done. I'm a perfect example of it. I didn't have startup cash. I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. It really just came down to treating people well and being generous. And look, that's why I call my book Anti Agency, because this could have been a 5 million, $10 million business if I treated it differently. If it's just about the money, it was just about landing as many clients as possible. If it was just about hire whoever you can, and it's okay if they quit after 6 months, we'll get somebody else. I don't want a revolving door agency. I don't want that level of like craziness. So it is kind of a lifestyle business for me. We move slower, we make better choices about who we work with. And that's certainly limited our ability to be a bigger agency, but you have to just trust your instincts. And to just piggyback on that, you better be niched and you better be AI powered. Because if you don't do those two things, you're going to lose. You know, do those two tactical things and trust your instincts. And then in the book, my favorite chapter is the runway analogy about when I talk about, and I touched on it here, how while I had a job, I created the runway to my true calling of entrepreneurship. And I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning of the call, but you know, anybody that's listening, I give this book away for free. Like, you know, I'll give you the information. They can go and download a digital copy. I don't, you know, that just adds to the authenticity of it. Like, I'm not selling anything. I don't stand to gain anything. I just want to help people find freedom through entrepreneurship because it's been the most gratifying thing in my life. Because I think as you get older, you start to realize time is the most valuable currency. And when you have freedom and you get to choose how that time is spent, I don't think there's anything more powerful in the world.
So Jason, you just did it again. Exactly what I thought. I asked you this question and you didn't go into, hey, use us for this, use us for that.
Uh,
This is, you went straight into, I want to help people. Let me give them a message of how we can help. So it's just further solidifies
yeah.
what I was just saying, that
Huh.
that's what you need to be doing.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I want to do. And look, my generosity is certainly extensive, but at the same time, it's like, well, there is a limit. Like, I'm going to have to figure out a way to like monetize it in a way if I'm going to do it. Like, if I were asked to do podcasts, you know, two or three times a day, that wouldn't scale. Like I can't, I could do one or two here and there, and not even have to think about should I be monetizing that. But I think that's the thing that I'm struggling with now is like I know what I love, and I know what I want to do. How do I keep doing that, but figure out a way to monetize it that feels natural, accessible, and that could somehow fund my life, and I could kind of move away from the agency life. That's kind of the space I'm in and trying to figure out.
perfect, perfect. All right. So, how can we get in touch with you, your company, and how does somebody get a hold of that book?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two places you can go to our agency website if you want to learn more about what we've built and what that looks like. Socialistics.com, pretty easy to find. It's you just type in socialistics and you'll find it. And then if you want to learn more about myself or the book or just want to reach out, I'm always happy to talk to people or advise or, you know, answer some questions, whether it's over email or whatever. You can get all that information there. And then I think I'm looking as I speak right now. The URL to get a free copy of the book is just basically jasonyormark.com/ free dash book. And I'm guessing you can put that obviously in your materials so people can get access to it. But real easy, just fill out the form. Nothing, it's just name, email, and you'll automatically get a digital copy of the book. That's the one I give away for free. If people want a hard copy, I'm old school. I like physical books. It's on
Right.
Amazon. It's super cheap. I also have free copies of the audiobook if people prefer that version. So anything digital I give away for free. Physical copy, you just jump on Amazon and get it for, I don't know what they're selling for these days. I haven't even looked because like I said, it's not a moneymaker. It's just a means to help other people. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Jason, I want to thank you so much for being on our podcast. It's been, I feel like in some ways it's been enlightening for me, and I'm sure we're going to have some listeners feel the same way.
Well, thank you for
So
having me.
thank you so much.
For sure.
Folks, if you like to learn more about Jason and his team, please reach out to them. I think they're going to be the best source, I think, for you. And for those people that might be looking for a mentor or someone that can help you navigate this world as it relates to business, check Jason out and his team. I think it's going to be a phenomenal engaging experience, I think, for Jason himself as he navigates through that. And then if you like our content, please like, subscribe, share, comment. And from what I'm understanding, hype is now a thing with YouTube. I don't know if if you have you heard the term hype, Jason?
I mean, in its general context, but not in the context of YouTube, I guess.
Yeah, one of the other podcasters that is just says, yeah, now you can hype. I haven't heard that, but we'll see
I'll
how
have to
that
look into
goes.
that
But thank you so much,
for sure.
everybody, for watching another episode of Revenue Playbook Chronicles. And we will see you on the next one.